Chapter 11. Only Water. The journey was easier the next day. There were only 2 pieces of ice to carry, each the size of a football, and we soon reached the top of the mountain. The view was wonderful. All Honduras was there in front of us. We could probably see all the way to Nicaragua. We started downhill. We almost didn't see the village. The smell of smoke told us we were close, and then we saw women on their knees in the mud by the stream. "Those women are washing clothes," I said. Jerry said, "So what?" "No one's wearing clothes," I said. "Not that kind." The woman ran away when we came near, and the men in the village stared at us. "They've probably never seen a white man before," whispered Father. "No one must make a sudden noise or movement." We stayed behind him. He tried talking to the men in English and then in Spanish, but they didn't seem to understand. He offered them the bag in which he had put one of the pieces of ice. One of the men opened the bag and turned it upside down. Only water ran out to the ground. "Quick," Father said, "the other bag." The Indians watched Father searching in the wet bag. "Got it," Father said, and held up a small piece of ice, the size of my little finger. He put it in his open hand to show them, and the little piece of ice immediately disappeared. Before they could look at it, the water ran between his fingers. Father still held his wet hand out, but the Indians were staring at his half finger. "I don't believe this," Father said quietly. He walked away. For a moment, I thought he was going back to Geronimo, but he turned and began to talk to the Indians. He told them about the ice he had brought them. "I'll be back," he said. "I'll show you." But most of the Indians were still staring at his half finger. Then one of them spoke, very clearly, in Spanish. "Go away," he said. Father laughed at him. "I'm sorry," he said. "It was an accident. Next time I'll get the ice to you." "Go away," the Indian said again. But he looked frightened, not frightening. "These are real savages," Father said. "We should go," Francis said. "I'm not moving," Father said. "Charlie, tell them we're not going until I've eaten something." I told them. The Indians went away, and we sat down under a tree. Although I was tired and hungry, I wanted to get out of this place, and I knew from Jerry's face that he did too. To our complete surprise, the food was brought to us by white men. They looked ill, but they were almost smiling, and as they put the food in front of us, they watched us closely. "This is what the Indians didn't want us to see," Father said. "These men are their prisoners." He spoke to the men in Spanish. "Hey, do you let these Indians tell you what to do?" "Yes." The Indians watched us from the other side of the clearing. "Where are you from?" asked one of the men. "Are you missionaries?" "Do I look like a missionary?" Father asked. "No. We live across the mountains. We have a small farm there. If you can escape, you'd be safe. That's the best way to the coast." The man nodded. "Why did you come here?" Father explained about the ice and how we made it. "Your father's a very intelligent man," the man said to me. "Everyone says that," I said. Father said, "They'll keep you here until you're too weak to work, and then they'll kill you and feed you to the vultures. Do you think they'll try to get us?" "Who knows? They're very strong," the man said, and the other men nodded. "I want to walk out of here wearing my head," Father said. "I want to get back home. We have everything there." "Guns?" the man asked. "No, no guns. We don't need them. You remind me of how I used to feel in the United States, like a prisoner. I just got up and walked away. If you take my advice, you'll do the same." "We might do that," the man said. "How far is it to your farm?" Father told them. "You'll be safe there," he said. The men nodded and smiled. "But now go," their leader said. "You'll help us if you don't make the Indians angry." We just got up and left them like that. The Indians sitting on the ground, the white men standing. I was wondering why the prisoners asked so many questions. The journey back was easier. Father said, "I wish Mother had seen the Indians' faces when we gave them the ice." Jerry was searching Father's face. "They couldn't believe it," Father said. Finally, because no one was saying anything, I said, "What ice?" "The ice I showed them." "There was no ice, Dad." "That small piece," he said. "You saw it, didn't you, Jerry?" "Yes, Dad." This wasn't true. Father's lie made me feel lonelier than any lie I had ever heard. Back in Geronimo, things had changed. The place felt empty. Mother came out of the house. Her face was white. "Allie," she said, and stopped. "What's happened?" Father asked. She said, "I thought something had happened to you, too." "Too?" "The Maywits have gone. All of them. I couldn't stop them." Clover and April came running from the trees. Clover said, "A motorboat came and took all the Maywits away. It was that missionary." "I'll tell you something," Father said. "Those Maywits have got a lot to learn." "If he knew everything, why didn't he know their real name?" I said, "Maywit isn't their real name. It's Roper. They're all Ropers." "Who says?" I told him what Alice had told us, but I didn't tell him about home or that they were all afraid of him. Jerry, Clover, and April said nothing. They let me take the blame for knowing. "Is there more you ought to tell me?" Dad asked. I was going to say, "Those men you called prisoners didn't look like prisoners, and the Indians looked frightened. The ice was gone before they could see it. You wouldn't let us rest. You made Jerry cry." But I said, "No." "Then I know more than you. I know they'll come back." "It was horrible," Mother said, and Mr. Hattie nodded. "That missionary shouted angrily at the Maywits, or Ropers. He called you a bad man. He said a lot of the Indians thought you had made a god in a box. Indians, he thought, were Christians. He pushed the Maywits into the river to clean them, he said." "He said you were as bad as the soldiers," Clover added. "What soldiers?" Mr. Hattie said, "There are soldiers up in the jungle near Nicaragua." The Maywits were frightened, Mother said. They packed their bags and left. "They'll be back," Father said. "They'll find it's a terrible world out there, and they'll come back. You remember my words." Father's next plan was to dig a hole until he reached water. It was the dry season, and the river was low. To save water, we weren't making any ice. Everyone who came for ice was put to work digging the hole. Soon, the visitors stopped coming. We were fetching water from the river early one morning when Mr. Hattie came running out of the jungle toward Father's hole. He stopped at the edge and said to Father, "People are coming." Father climbed out of the hole and he said, "It must be the Maywits. I told you." But this time Father was wrong. "Men," Mother said, looking up the path. "3 of them, Allie." "I knew they would come too," Father said, but his voice had gone cold. "They're the prisoners I told you about." "Then why do they have guns, Dad?" Clover asked.